Grace was an independent, hardworking young woman who was looking for a higher-paying job when she accepted an offer from a Facebook friend. She was shocked and terrified when she realized that her friend was a trafficker. He imprisoned Grace in his home and forced her into sex trafficking. Traffickers promise a higher-paying job, a loving relationship, or a new and exciting opportunity. Traffickers can be lone individuals or extensive criminal networks. Grace, a normal girl living in San Diego, was forced into sex trafficking. She was lucky enough to find help, but thousands of people around the world are not so lucky. Sex trafficking is not something that only happens in faraway countries. San Diego is one of the largest hubs for sex trafficking in the world. This happens where we live.
Sex trafficking has been happening since the beginning of time. Though it seems like a faraway problem, sex trafficking is one of the most profitable illegal businesses in the U.S. Specifically, our city brings an estimated $100 million through human trafficking and is considered the second largest underground economy in San Diego. The FBI recognizes San Diego as one of the top 13 highest intensity child prostitution areas in the country.
California provides a prime environment for human trafficking because of our extensive international borders, airports, and harbors, large native and immigration populations, and strong economy. When there is a demand for sex with minors, unpaid labor, and debt labor, there will always be a supply. Not all sex trafficking is what we see in Hollywood movies or dramatized photos. A significant amount of sex trafficking in California and abroad are people forced into sex through financial obligation. Predators are now targeting more and more victims through online recruiting and advertising, as demonstrated by Grace's case. Human trafficking is also prominent in creating cheap fashion, especially in areas such as Los Angeles, in order to compete with international low-wage fashion industries.
Go.
The people that get involved in trafficking are generally women and children. As young as 5 to 6 years old, kids get kidnapped and forced into systematic abuse. According to UNICEF, every 2 minutes, a child is being prepared for sexual exploitation. Every year, 1.2 million children alone are being trafficked, and 80% of these trafficking victims are women, and half are children. Unfortunately, the people most often brought into that world are homeless people, prostitutes, and runaways. Lured in with the promises of a better life, these people are trafficked and trapped into a ring of abuse and pain.
Proposed solutions to the prevalent issue of sex trafficking already exist, and one of them is implementing legislation. The Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which was created by the federal government in 2000, includes prevention of future sex trafficking, protection for those victims, and prosecution of sex traffickers. And on a state level, California created the Transparency in Supply Chains Act in 2012, which outlines retailers and manufacturers' responsibility to provide consumers with information regarding their efforts to eradicate slavery and human trafficking from their supply chains. While legislation on both the federal and state scale is highly beneficial in providing a direction and future for sex trafficking solutions, it's missing that important aspect of interactivity.
Yeah. Another solution is the rehabilitation of victims of sex trafficking, which provides comprehensive services and necessary resources for those who have been affected. Rehab helps survivors and victims recover while mentoring them and providing prevention and protection. It's an interactive way to solve the problem of sex trafficking, but does not fully solve the issue of continuing sex trafficking. Because of this lack of education for the people not affected, the solution is limited to those who've experienced sex trafficking firsthand. Most people do not understand the enormity and prevalence of sex trafficking, and thus solutions need participation and education to be most effective.
Our solution is that the Education Department should fund a mandatory class educating teachers on how to spot signs of human trafficking, how to fully aid the victim, and how students can avoid this and help others as well. We should also help students understand the consequences of human trafficking. It would also be beneficial to the students to understand that there's always another way, and that going into sex trafficking should not be a choice.